That's why today I'm answering the question, how do you lead through listening? Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Coach-like Questions and Cocktails, a series where we demystify the concept of coaching through our favorite drinks. A key skill that every leader needs to have if they want to be successful is listening. It may sound simple, but being an active listener as a leader is one of the more challenging skills you need to master. So that's why today I'm answering the question, how do you lead through listening? Now, there are two main types of listening every leader should be aware of in the workplace. They are level 1 listening and level 2 listening. But before I explain these any further, let's make a drink to help us wake up in the morning or keep us warm on a cold day. Today we're making a London Fog. So let's make a London Fog. First, we start with Earl Grey tea, and you add 1.5 tablespoons to any kind of teapot that you want to use for steeping, and add approximately 6 ounces of water, and then you need to let it steep for a minute or two. All right, it's been a couple of minutes and this tea looks pretty steep to me, so we're going to go on to our next steps for our London Fog. Next up is adding some vanilla syrup. So I usually add about 3 pumps. And directly following that, you pour in the tea. In this case, I've got this handy contraption where you just lay it on top of the cup and the tea goes into the cup. Just give that a few seconds. And remove. And then the last ingredient is frothed milk. So I've already done this in advance, and we add that in and give it a little stir, and voila, here is your London Fog. Now, one thing to keep in mind with a London Fog is what's your ratio of tea to milk. For me, I like it to be 1/3 tea, so 6 ounces, to 2/3 milk, which is about 10 ounces of milk. But you might like yours slightly differently. When you make this drink for yourself and give it a try, you can see why it's called a London Fog. You take a sip and you're transported to London on a gray, cloudy day where thick fog has encapsulated the city in its mysterious cloak. The reason why I chose a London Fog is because the idea of being covered in a thick cloak of fog is a great metaphor for explaining the differences between level 1 and level 2 listening. So let's start with level 1 listening. Level 1 listening is when you're putting the focus of a conversation on yourself. When a person listens at level 1, they're listening to the sound of their own inner voice. The focus of their attention and listening energy is on themselves. When you're in level 1 listening, you're listening to yourself instead of listening to others. Now, with level 2 listening, you're putting the focus of the conversation on the person you're speaking with. When you practice level 2 listening, your thoughts and questions are all concentrated on the other person. You're paying attention to what someone else is saying and how it affects them, not how it impacts you. You're dedicating your listening energy to thinking about the other person and the issues they're currently facing. As leaders, it's your job to use level 2 listening effectively, particularly when you're working with your employees to engage with what they're saying, see their perspective, discover solutions to problems, and create action plans together. Now, here's the problem I see in today's working world, is that many leaders are stuck in level 1 listening. They're not looking at problems from the perspective of another person, which leads to misunderstandings and miscommunication. Organizations with leaders who use level 1 listening are covered in that thick London fog I mentioned earlier. Nobody can properly communicate, make cohesive decisions, or understand what each other truly needs. Leaders need to use level 2 listening so they can take action in the most effective way for their people. If you're able to make this change, you'll become a more effective, compassionate, and understanding leader that will make a greater impact on the organization and people's lives. So now that I've answered this question for you, I want you to answer a question for me. Are you a level 1 listener or a level 2 listener? What can you do today to change your listening habits? Thanks again for watching this episode of Coach Like Questions and Cocktails. If you enjoyed it and want to learn more about how to improve your listening habits, you can sign up for my newsletter and follow me on social media. And as always, please remember to drink and coach responsibly. Cheers and see you soon. Yaram, do you want to give this tea a try?
I do know how this one tastes. Good tea.